Hello, millionaires. Welcome to the Millionaire Money Podcast, episode 25. Today, I am going to be sharing with you my personal Solitude retreat practice and how you can accelerate your business and your life by kickstarting your year with God. Let's talk about it. All right, family, let's get into it. So many of you guys have heard me talk about or post about going away on my Solitude retreat. So I do Solitude retreats every quarter. I do 3-day Solitude retreats every quarter. And then I do a 7-day Solitude retreat with God in the beginning of the year. And I constantly get messages from many of you guys going, Toyin, what I've been hearing from you people is not just, Toyin, how are you doing it? Y'all be like, Toyin, I'm doing a 3-day Solitude retreat just like you, or I'm doing a 7-day Solitude retreat just like you. What do you do? And I love it. I love that our people are going and being alone with God. And it was just so funny to me because today alone, I was literally going to do this podcast and talk about something else. But I got so many individual messages from many of you guys who track with our podcast and with our community saying, Toyin, I'm literally going. I'm going. I've already decided, but I have no idea what I'm doing. I just love the proactiveness. And so I decided, instead of answering each one of you one here and there, I'm going to come out here and I'm just going to share it with every single one of you exactly what my Solitude retreat practice is and how I kind of maximize that time to not just draw closer to God, but also to accelerate in every single thing that I'm doing, whether it's business, life, momming, wifing, all the wonderful things that God has graced me to be able to do. And not only that, this is actually a practice that I challenge our Millionaire Mastermind clients to do every single year. And in fact, all of my clients, I challenge every one of you guys to go ahead and take that time and be with God. And so I decided, you know what, if I'm telling y'all to do it, then why not come out here and just share with you exactly what the process looks like. So why do I do it? I do this because I want to, yes, it's of course throughout the year, you're going to spend time with God. You're going to check in, all of those wonderful things. But I just think that there's something special about giving this time to God. And as you guys already heard from me, my new year starts November because my birthday is in November. And so with that, I actually do a retreat around my birthday. And then I do a 7-day retreat around the beginning of the year. And it's mostly because I want to lean in. I want to hear what he has to say about my year, about my life, about where I am right now. And of course, in the beginning of the year, many of us are listening. We're leaning in to kind of hear what other people are saying, what other people are hearing from God or sensing in general. But I just find that there's something extremely valuable about leaning in for yourself to hear what he is saying to you in every single season. And so for me, this Solitude retreat, not just in the beginning of the year, but every single quarter, is one of the most valuable things that I have ever done, learned. I learned this from a mentor of mine. Actually, two of my mentors who did a practice very similar to this. I think theirs was even more than this. I think he was doing like 7 days every month or something like that, or maybe 7 days every quarter. I don't remember. But this is my version. It's less than that, but I figure, you know what? You guys are going to be able to learn from this, implement it, and do it in your own way as well. Now, if you don't take time to be with God in the beginning of the year or even throughout the year, one of the things that ends up happening is you end up wasting time. And what do I mean by that? I mean, you just run, you're just doing, you're just going, you're just living, running, business, work, all these things. And you're not taking the time to actually find your center. And I found, guys, we are all human beings, and it's very, very easy to lose perspective of the big picture because you're so caught up in what you have to get done right now. And you have to hear me, guys. There will always be the urgent. There will always be the important. But if you don't pause to think, to breathe, to prioritize, to lean in, you'll never ever be able to operate at your absolute optimal level. And so one of the things people ask me is like, Toyin, how is it that you quadruple your business revenue, you double, you do this, no matter what's happening? And y'all know I did a training last year where I kicked off the year with this free training, and I told you guys that you want to leave the year with stories of what you accomplished and not excuses because of what happened. And y'all know, I'll talk a little bit about that later, but that there were challenges in my year last year. However, I truly believe that this practice, not just in the beginning of the year, but throughout the year, is part of what kept me anchored throughout the challenges to get the type of results that we ended up getting regardless by the end of the year. And so when you are building, when you are creating, you have to be careful. You have to be careful that you don't lose perspective. You have to be careful that you don't start to misprioritize and find yourself running and creating success, but you're building, there's a quote from Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And it's funny, I just did a post about this. It's a totally different conversation. I was saying that in his book, he said many people are climbing the ladder of success only to get to the top and realize that it's leaning against the wrong wall. And often, especially with social media, like back in the day, you could run your business, you could do your thing, you could become a multimillionaire and not know what anybody else's thing is or what anybody else's business is. You could just, drink, what was that song? Drink water and mind your business. But these days, everybody's business is in front of you. You can't run away from it. So whether you like it or not, you're going to be getting influenced here and there by, this person's doing that. Oh, that person's doing that. And you start moving this way, that way. And these retreats are my way of remembering my life before God, because guess what? At the end of the day, we are all going to die. At the end of the day, we're going to leave this planet. And when that happens, when that time comes for every single one of us, the question isn't going to be, how much money did you have in your bank account, or how much did you accomplish, or, all these different things. The question is going to be, did you keep the first things the first things? Did you love well? Were you present with the people that God committed to you, to steward, to love, your family members, the things that were most important, your relationship with God? Those become the things that you begin to see, did I value those things? And it's not just that, you get very amazing, unspeakable levels of direction. 2 years ago, I did a retreat. One of these, it was one of the quarterly ones. So it was a 3-day retreat, not even 7. And in that retreat, God completely shifted the direction of my life and of my business. It was one of those retreats. And so I'll talk about the details of the retreat and how I do it and the differences between them. But that was one of the retreats that literally has changed my life. He gave me a 7-year plan that was extremely detailed, extremely strategic, that we've actually been living from that blueprint for the last 2 years. And seeing the outcome of living from that blueprint in ridiculous, just dreams come true, massive growth, massive impact. And I know that it literally came from a 3-day retreat where I sat down in the presence of God and did all the stuff I'm going to tell you about, and just let him lead and let him speak. And so I cannot tell you more than this. I can't use words to tell you how important this is, because I know that for many of you, you're hearing me and the thought in your head when you think about taking that time away. And I don't even know how much time at this stage of my life, because I've been doing this practice now for maybe 12 years, for at least 12 years. How much time I've actually taken to be away with God, because I brought it to 7 days, 3, 3, 3, 3 through the year, because of the level of business and just how many things are happening. But I know I've done more, even longer times, in different seasons of life. So I've done this a lot. And I know that for many of you, you're thinking, Toyin, I'm too busy. There's too many things on my plate. I've got too much to do. And I'm going to tell you how to do this, even if you have so much that's happening in your life. I know for many of you, you're thinking, well, I can't afford to take that time off and just rest or be with God or any of this stuff. This is for people who can afford to do this. And I just want to let you know, like I said, I have done this for the last 12 years minimum. And you guys know that I was not a multi-millionaire 12 years ago. Okay. So this stage or season of my life has only been in the last 4 years, 3 to 4 years. Whereas for the other 7 to 8 years, I have been leaning in this exact same way, because I understood no matter what, just how valuable it is to lean in and hear from God. And so I just want to say that again, this is not a matter of, oh, you can do it whether you can afford to or you cannot. You can't afford to continue to live your life the way you're always living your life, just running with the urgency of the moment and not taking that time to really sit your butt down and create. Another thing that people often tell me about is, Toyin, I can't do it because I'm going to be so bored. Like, I'm not going to know what to do. I'm going to tell you what to do. That's another one I've heard. I don't know what I'm going to do in there. I'm going to tell you what you're going to do. And then one that I have heard a couple of people say is, Toyin, I don't want to do this retreat and go away with God because I'm afraid that, and this is a real one, that God won't speak to me. You often talk about these moments that you kind of hear from God. And I just feel like if I do it, I'm just going to do it and sleep and come back and ain't nothing going to change. And I do want to encourage you that the way that God speaks, like, of course, we have a whole program on this, so I'm not going to go into that, but the way that God speaks to people is different for different people. That's one. Two, even people that feel disconnected from God, taking this time, have seen the same, like, just levels of impact that they would not have imagined going into it. And in fact, it's funny to me because we have a lot of folks, like, we work with people who are Christian, we work with people who are not Christian. And sometimes, some of our clients will do this practice for the first time ever. Every time they come back and they're like, my mind was blown, like this happened and this happened, blah, blah, blah. And I'll talk to you guys about what it can look like, because it doesn't always look like your mind is blown and all this wonderful, big things. Sometimes it's very subtle. So with all of that being said, let me tell you how I do it. And you can take this, you can piecemeal it, you can chop it, slice it. This has just been the routine that has really had a huge impact on me. And I wanted to give it as a free gift to each one of you as we kick off this year. So what do you want to do? First thing first, take time off. And what do I mean by that? You need time to do this retreat. It can be a 1-day retreat. It can be a 3-day retreat. It can be a 7-day retreat. Those are kind of the way I structure it. Like I said, do you, boo. The one that I would highly recommend at the least is a 3-day retreat. And the reason for that is because with a 1-day retreat, your brain is, and I'm going to talk about your brain and just how it's moving and all that. But your brain is moving so fast. There's so many things that it takes time for your brain to decompress, let go, and really begin to lean in and think on a higher level. And so in 1 day, you will get some of that and you will have some of that impact. But I've just found that 3 days is really that sweet spot where you will be able to see the impact in a very, very marked way. And then of course with 7 days, it's even that much more ability to think and create and hear and lean in and all that wonderful stuff. Some of you guys are working in a career and some of you are running a business and you're saying, Toyin, I can't take that type of time off. And I want to say this, you can do it over the weekend. So if you normally get 2 days off, whether it's Saturday, Sunday, it's Wednesday, Thursday, whenever it is, structure yourself and see if you can do extra hours in another week or whatever it is, like reschedule things so you can just take the extra day beside the days you were going to take off anyway. So like if you're going to do Saturday, Sunday, see if you can switch with someone and do a Friday, Saturday, Sunday and make that your retreat. Another thing that people have said is, well, Toyin, I'm a mom and, my children need me. Hey, I'm a mom too. Or dad. Some of you guys are dads and such. And I did this before I was married. I did it when I was single. I did this when I was married, and it did change the dynamic. And then I did this as a mom, and it did change the dynamic. That's a lot of detail I'm not going to get into here. But I will say that even if it means you ask for help and you ask someone to help you watch the children for 3 days so you can just be alone, then go ahead and do that. That's something that even in my home, I do, where I'll go for 3 days and my husband's with the children for those 3 days, or he'll go for 3 days and I'm with the children for 3 days. I'm a breastfeeding mom, and so I have a baby right now, and I'm bringing her with me. So we are going to be doing this thing together. She's going to sit in the presence of God with me. And so I just want to say there is no excuse. Okay, y'all? All that to say, there ain't no excuse. Take the time off. All right. Number 2, I normally fast. And so normally what I will do is I'm on a 3-day water fast. Sometimes I'll do a, 1 meal a day type of structure, or fasting until midnight, until 6 p.m. every day. Now I will say this: anything you want to do when it comes to fasting, check with your medical professional. I am not your doctor. I am not your healthcare practitioner. So please don't come back to me and say, Toyin told me to fast. Okay. But I have found that there is a different depth of leaning in. It's like fasting. I mean, there's books on fasting, and I think there was a book by Mike Bickle on fasting and the benefits of fasting for your walk with God that I just absolutely love. So you can go check that one out. But I found that for me, fasting actually slows down my thinking. And, on a normal day, even kicking off this year, we've been engaging in something like that. But on a normal day, it's like, I want to think sharply. I want to be on it, but I find that I want to slow down. I want to not have to be carrying all these different things. So fasting actually helps me in that way. It allows me to really lean in. And I don't know, there's just something different about fasting when I go on these retreats versus just eating like I normally do. Now, of course, like I said, I am nursing, so I am not going to be doing an only water fast while I'm trying to create some breast milk out here. I'm doing a modified fast. And so just putting that note there for any of you guys that may be listening that may be nursing as well, or one day be nursing when you're wanting to do this. So just to say, I am going to be eating, but it's like I'm eating something different from what I normally would, to acknowledge that I am both fasting and I am taking care of my body so I can take care of my baby. All right. What do you take with you? So what I do is I take very few things with me. I take a journal and a pen. I take my Bible, of course. What are you doing if you are going without a Bible? What are you going to do there? So I take my Bible, and sometimes I'll take something to play music. Because I want to music is a part of allowing your brain to get creative, to think, to relax. But for me, I also want to worship and I want to sing. And so I'll sing by myself. You guys know I have worship albums and stuff like that. Check me, Spotify, YouTube, wherever they are. But yeah, so we have worship music. And I sometimes want to sing. And then sometimes I want to just play music so that my brain is able to really kind of step into that creative space with God. And then on some retreats, I'll take 1 or 2 books as well with me. Often I only take books when it's a 7-day. Like I said, sometimes I'll take a book on a 3-day. And the reason for that is I usually am leaning in to God, a Holy Spirit, to say, okay, what kind of a conversation do you want us to have right now? Is there any specific area that you want me to up level while I'm in this thing? And I walk through my library. As you guys see, the books, this one is for show. If you're watching this by video and you see my background, this one right here on these bookshelves, they are for sure. I've read these ones. Our library, our real library. I thank God for it, because there's just been a lot of books that have had a huge impact on our lives. But anyhow, I walk through this library because these are like my top books. Hey, that's my book right there, Money Mindset Shift. And then I walk through like our actual library and just lean in open-handed to see, okay, God, what sort of conversation may you want us to have? It doesn't mean I'm going to read the book. It doesn't mean I'm going to read the whole thing. I often do if I bring a book, and it really is part of that up-leveling experience. Then what's the other thing that we do while we're on this retreat? We pray. And what do I mean by we pray? You want to make sure that you're in this time actually taking time to seek the face of God. So actually, you know what? Let me do this. I'm going to talk about what to expect and what the process kind of looks like in terms of prayer and prep and all of that. So one of the things that you want to know right out the gate, you're going to fall asleep. So over the years, many others have kind of heard me talk about this practice that I do. And like I said, they just go ahead and do it. And I've had so many people come to me after their retreat and say, Toyin, I did the retreat like you talk about, and I slept, and they're like in suffering. Like I was so sleepy. I kept falling asleep and I felt so bad and la, 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 la. And I laughed so hard, like often, because I'm just like, I sleep too. Sometimes we want to be like this ultra superpower person that's like, I don't sleep. I just pray the whole time. I'm just on my knees all the time. And I'm just like getting all these downloads nonstop. And it's just amazing. And I want to say, like, no, usually for me, like I go in and I'm in a place of prayer and I'm leaning into the Lord. I'm leaning into God. But I do sleep. And especially in the first day, it could be because of just the pace that I tend to run at. If you know me, you know that there's often many different things that we're doing in any given period of time. So when I get into that space where I'm by myself, I will fall asleep at first. And I don't get guilty about it. I don't suffer about it. I allow myself to rest, just rest. Okay. So I get the rest. I wake up and I pray and I lean in and I read the word and I write down the dreams that I'm having. In fact, I often get dreams because that's one of the ways that God speaks to me that are part of the directive that I'm to take. And so I like to go to sleep in these times because that's where your brain is also able to connect dots and heal and grow and all this wonderful stuff. So don't resist the rest portion of it. Sometimes people want to like muscle through and be able to say like, I did all these different things. But part of taking this time away is to actually feel refreshed and feel energized for what you're going to be coming back into, because my staff team knows this, especially those that have run with me for a number of years. They know that often when Toyin goes into retreat and she comes back, there's so much that I have for how we can up level processes and this and this and this. And so part of it is me now getting the rest for the journey that's ahead. Kind of like what Elijah did before when the angel came to him and said, eat this cake and, eat this cake, get this rest because you have a long journey ahead of you. Here's another thing to just know. In the first couple of days, like if you're doing a 3-day retreat, let's say day 1, half of day 2, your brain is going to have a crazy number of thoughts to process. And what do I mean by that? Just random thoughts, like to-do list type of stuff. Once again, for myself, when I was in ministry, we were doing a whole lot of, events and functions, and I'm leading people, and there's all these balls that I was managing in that arena. And then now we're running a multi-million-dollar business. We have a staff team. I have my household, my children, my husband. So there's just so many thoughts, so many things. So what do? In my journal, I have a section for the to-do list. And it's not a section, it's a page. Why? Because I can come out of a retreat with like 100 item to-do list. I'm not exaggerating. The last one I did was 119. Another one was 151. Okay, y'all? That's how much my brain is like, oh, I never wrote that down. We never did that. Did we do this? Da, 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 da. So I write it all down. And I'm like I said, this isn't a training podcast, but I just want to say that because I know you guys are going to have many thoughts. And if you don't write it down, your brain is going to be fighting to remember these random thoughts, and you're not going to be able to let go and really lean in and listen. Okay. So just want to share that. And then, with my clients, I'm going to share with them what I do with the to-do list. That when you're coming out with a to-do list, that's 119 points. Like, what the heck do you do to make sure that you are not overwhelmed? You're like calmly, wonderfully getting your life on track. So what I find is your brain is going to kind of really begin to calm down halfway through day 2, and you're still able to receive so much in like, you can receive so much in a 3-hour time span. Like the 7-year plan that we're currently living out that I got 2 years ago, the actual span in which God was saying, okay, this is how you're going to do it. This is what you're going to do, blah, blah, blah. That actual time span was maybe 4 hours in that retreat, but it was everything leading into it that prepared my brain to be able to receive at that level. And then everything after the 4 hours that was, oh my gosh, how do we do that? And now going into each thing in detail and leaning in that way. So that's my point, is you don't need to have all this time to be able to receive if you can just get your brain into that space. And I think a big part of what helps me to do that as well, and I'll talk about this, is our money mindset shift process literally helps you to drop thoughts that are not serving you so you can think at a higher level. And I do think that that's a big part of why I'm able to receive these types of downloads that are like, oh my goodness, okay, I can use this, I can leverage this for however long. Now, let me just also say something. You're not always going to have those massive downloads. So that 7-year plan that we are now using, I remember there was another retreat I did. This was a longer one. I think it was like 30 days of solitude, it's a couple of months, where I'd gone away. This was before I was married. A couple of months I had gone away to just be with God. I asked my friend, I was young, so I didn't even have money to go and say, oh, I'm going to go do this in a hotel or something. I asked my friend, can I stay in your room for the next just couple of months just to seek God? And back then I was also studying. So seek God and study and just be alone and nobody talks to me. But I remember back then I did a 3-day retreat. Actually, now that I remember, I was staying with her to study and be alone. And in that period of a couple of months, I would have multiple times where I just did 3 days of no one talk to me. I'm just going to seek God and hear his voice and see what he has to say. But I remember this was 2012. He actually gave me a similar download to what I just received 2 years ago. And that breakdown of, hey, Toyin, this is what I want you to do for the next year. This is how you're going to do it. This is the breakdown. That actually was what I followed, the blueprint that I lived until 2016. It actually determined my 4-year trajectory, which was the foundation for what has now created this business and what I'm doing in this work. So each time those things have happened, it's been extremely impactful for me personally. But I want to say this. I have tons of retreats and I don't come out of every single one of them going, oh my gosh, look at this download and here's the new plan and blah, blah, blah. No, most of them feel and look mundane. Most of them, I'm learning principles. I'm always learning principles. So I'm always fired up because I love to learn. So every time I'm like, oh my gosh, I learned this and I saw this in the Bible. I'd never seen it that way before. Can y'all tell I'm about to go on mine and I am amped. So I always learn and I love to learn and I'm very expressive. So I come out and I'm like, oh my gosh, my whole life was changed with these lessons that I learned. But it's not all the time that it is like this God download of blah, blah, blah. In fact, what I normally do to accelerate my learning when I go away is, so our process, the money mindset shift process, allows our clients and myself, I didn't create it for clients. I actually created that process for my own brain. And it worked so well that I introduced it to my clients. But I am able to sit down and kind of bring to the surface, okay, what is the goal? What am I doing this year? So if I'm going to quadruple the business, our impact, our revenue, if I'm going to 10x our impact, our revenue, what's the goal? And then I'm able to do this process to say, what are the limiting beliefs that could keep me from hitting that goal? And now here's what's very important about this, because, this is the Millionaire Money Podcast. So yes, I'm going to tell y'all how this can impact your finances, where I set the new target, and then I leverage our money mindset shift process to actually see what are the limiting beliefs that are coming up. that could keep me from hitting this outcome that I'm wanting to receive right now. And once I see them, I use our process to clear those subconscious beliefs. I do this for every single retreat. That part is life-changing all the time, because there's what got you here won't get you there, right? And there's limiting beliefs that I faced when we couldn't pay rent to the place where we did our first 6-figure year. There's limiting beliefs that I had to overcome between our first 6-figure year to when we did our first 7-figure year. And there's limiting beliefs between where we did our first 7-figure year to when we did our first 7-figure, so $1 million year to $1 million in 2 weeks. There's different beliefs that come up for each new level that you are wanting to step into. And if you don't think that is, then you're just going to slow yourself down, because you're going to be fighting all these battles in your head. And these limiting beliefs are real. So for me, I'm often like, there's always going to be the cry moment for me. Like, there's many cry moments often, because it's like, this is another layer that I need to shed of who I've been that may have served me in the past, but will not serve me moving forward. And honestly, guys, this is one of the highest values I've found for our clients who do money mindset shift, is that they have access to this process. So when they step away and do these retreats, they are able to sit down, put their goal ahead of them, ask themselves, do our exercises, what are the limiting beliefs that come up when I think about operating at this next level, and then actually shift it. For example, in 2022, when I set the goal for 2022, I asked the question, what is the limiting belief? I had a bunch of different exercises to figure out what my limiting belief was. It wasn't just the question. But one of the biggest ones for me was in my business. I found that I'm quite assertive, as you guys can tell. I'm assertive when it comes to standing up for my clients. Like, y'all, I'm like, boom, when I'm talking to my clients, like, this is what I see, and this is how you can stand up for yourself, and blah, blah, blah. So in my space, I'm strong. When I'm with friends, I'm myself. But there was this one type of room where I wouldn't be myself. And it was whenever I was working with a vendor that I hired. It's the weirdest thing, like absolutely the weirdest thing, okay? You wouldn't even think about that. So when I would pay somebody to work or serve our business, for some reason, I in my head, it was like they were doing me a favor and not I'm paying them for a service. So what that meant was I wouldn't stand up for my business, I wouldn't stand up for my family, and I wouldn't stand up for myself in those contexts, okay? And this is a challenge that I had for years, but it didn't matter till the level that I was going to go into in 2022. It's funny because I was, to do 7 figures, I didn't need it. I needed other things to be addressed before this one. So when I had that conversation with God last year about this weird vendor thing. And the reason I noticed it was because there was this one vendor toward the end of last year, beginning of last year, or toward the end of 2 years ago, beginning of last year, that we had paid tens of thousands of dollars. And this person did not do what they said they were going to do at all. And I had such a struggle with saying, hey, bro, that's not okay. Like, you literally said you're going to do these specific things and you didn't do any of them and you've been paid to do it. What's going on? So I did put my hand up and I'm like, hey, what's going on? Blah, blah, blah. But I wasn't really assertive about it. And the person kept giving all these excuses. And I was just like, this lacks integrity. This is not honorable. And so for me in my head, I'm like, if it lacks integrity, you can't even sleep with yourself like this, but turns out people can. And I realized from that experience that if I didn't learn how to track, no, these are the standards, these are the expectations, and I'm going to speak up for that, and I have more money, I would actually end up losing money and not stewarding it before God in the right way. So now I'm talking to God and I was like, Abba, how do we do this? Just so you guys see how real this was. In our process, he showed me how a lot of that came from, I'm Nigerian. I grew up in Africa not Africa. I don't say Africa. I didn't grow up in the whole continent. I grew up in Nigeria. And the sentiments back then was like, children don't really speak up, right? Like, so children, you kind of keep shut, you do your thing in your corner and let the people who know what they're saying talk. And then couple that experience with being Christian and trying to balance. So I'm coming out of ministry, not just being Christian, but coming out of ministry. And in a ministry context, like, just going low, for me, going low is a very big value, like not getting into conflict unnecessarily. There's a Bible verse that says, be at peace with all men. And so I want to be at peace with all men. But at the same time, in business, I need to be able to speak up at certain times. And I didn't know how to do that, because what I did know how to do was to give room for people to make their own decisions, live before God, and so on. And in other contexts, it worked perfectly fine, because that is what was necessary. It's everyone walking before God. But in business, if I'm giving you money, no, you're walking in front of me to do the thing that I paid you to do. Right? And so, but I couldn't close that gap because I felt like being assertive was somehow stepping out of being humble or giving room for people before God and that sort of thing. And so I just would keep my mouth shut. And I'll give you guys one example where this really showed up. And this is a real conversation podcast, y'all. So just, follow me here. He started showing me not just this example I'm about to share, but he showed me a bunch of examples where I had done this thing. So he showed me how, for example, in our family, we don't eat a lot of sugar. So we don't have candy that much, junk food that much. And our daughter had not had like pop sugar drinks. I think she was like 2.5 or something. And that's because we weren't drinking that stuff. She wasn't drinking that stuff. And I remember I had gone to a Harvey's, which is a food place for those of you guys who are listening internationally. So I went to a Harvey's burger joint, and the woman gave us our food, and she saw my daughter and she's like, oh my gosh, she's so cute. Oh my gosh, she's just so cute. Can I, do you mind? She didn't say, do you mind? Actually, she gave us the food and she was like, oh my gosh, she is so cute. I made her a slushie for free. You get a free slushie, little one. And everything inside of me wanted to respond and say, no, we don't do sugar. She's never had a sugary drink, like never. And we drink water, and I ordered water and we have our water. So I'm thinking all these thoughts, right? And especially outside of like apple juice, like she'd had like apple juice here and there, right? But even that would be like watered down apple juice. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation. But I'm here and I'm thinking these thoughts, and out of my mouth goes, thank you so much. And I gave her the slushie, and she's like, the sugar rush, oh my gosh, what is this thing? And like, there's so many moments where I had done things like that, where people would say or suggest something. I know I'm not comfortable with it, but I just felt like I had to go along with it. I wouldn't have a voice. And at beginning of last year was where God was like, all this time, it's not really mattered. But at this stage of your growth, at this stage of your building, now it matters. So we are going to need to build this muscle. So he starts showing me like the layers that were causing that to happen. And I'm in tears. And I shed that layer in that retreat to kick off last year, the 7 days to kick off last year. And it changed my life. Last year, we had so many different instances. And so you're going to hear the success that we had last year. But last year was one of our hardest years. We learned so many lessons. But one of the things I loved was I showed up and I had a voice. It was interesting. I actually lost my voice for a month last year. And when that happened, and I mean, I could not speak, I could not sing. I was coaching our clients and I was typing in the chats to answer their questions. And then I had like clients who would volunteer as my voice, actually. I love y'all. Y'all know yourself, staff members that would volunteer. O'Neill, Emily, love you guys. That would volunteer as my voice and say out loud what I was typing in the chat. And I remember even that whole month of not being able to speak, I felt like God was saying, this is what you've been doing internally. And he allowed me to feel it for a full month so that I could understand just how important it was for me to be able to speak so that I can do the things that he's calling me to do. All of that to say, that came out of, it wasn't like a big wow retreat moment. It wasn't a 7-year plan. But guys, like I said, even though last year was my hardest year ever, it was also our best year ever. We learned so much and I had such a voice. I was able to speak up for myself, for my family. I remember even when we moved, we had this company, we got our dream home, we moved into the house. We had this company that tried to like almost scam us. Like it was literally like a scam. And they were playing these games and they wouldn't give us our stuff off of the truck if we didn't pay them more than what we had agreed on. It was all this stuff. But it was like the stuff that he had taught me in the beginning of the year about having a voice. When I now spoke to the owner of that company and that owner of the company is trying to tell me, no, this is what you're going to do. You're going to pay us this amount, even though they had done all this stuff. Like I had a voice to be able to say, no, you're not going to bully me into doing something that you and I both know is not what needs to happen. And literally because I had a voice to be able to get our stuff and not fall for this guy's scam. And there were so many different moments where that voice was necessary in order for us to not just make it through the year. Like y'all know, last year I was sick for about 7 months. But still in that time, it was like we thrived through the year. Last year in that retreat, he had told me it would be a year of manifestation and rest. And this is one of the reasons why I do these, because I want to hear what is he saying about the year. And so he said, it's going to be a year of manifestation. It's going to be a year of rest. And I'm thinking, sunshine, lollipops, manifestation and rest. Little did I know that how accurate it was going to be. So many of our dreams came true. We watched our clients have $1 million years, record time, $1 million cash collected, $1 million profit. But not only that, we were able to get our dream home, which we've been able to host like worship stuff at our house. We're going to be hosting business retreats out of it. We had our first $1 million in 2 weeks. Period. We created stuff that I have never created at that level before. Stuff that I haven't seen done in the coaching industry. We created like the level of creating that process that we had in Money Mindset Shift. There were so many areas of manifestation. I remember we had some of our staff members that had hit these being with us for this long milestones, the number of staff members we had supporting our clients, just so many dreams come true, homeschooling our children, finding out last year that our daughter that we've been homeschooling is operating and thinking at a grade 4 level, even though she's like grade 1 age. It was our best year ever. And it was our hardest year ever, where I was stuck on a couch for 3 months. I lost my voice, as I mentioned, for a full month. We had COVID. I got food poisoning. I had like the 2-week period of having like gut issues that I'd never had before. But then even on a positive side, I had to rest because I had a baby. And it was funny because when he said it was a year of manifestation and rest, I thought, because I was pregnant, I thought that it was going to be a year of manifestation and rest because I would just rest through the pregnancy. And no, I would rest after I had the baby, I was going to run the business, have the baby, and take off like 3 months to rest. And I was like, ooh, it's going to be like radical rest right after I have the baby. Little did I know what he meant was I was going to rest the first 9 months of the year, because that's pretty much how long, I had just been pregnant. So I was going to rest the first 9 months of the year because so many things came at me physically, and then have the baby and be running. So like rest for like a month or maybe 2 weeks after having the baby, and then we were running. But because I could lean in and rest, when I knew the year was for rest, I knew that was one of the big lessons he wanted me to have. So I had to learn how to lean at a level I couldn't before. I didn't before. I've always, not always, but in the last few years, I've prioritized rest already, but I had to learn how to rest in an even greater way. And it created a year like no other year that we've ever had. And I know without a shadow of a doubt, it would not have looked that way if I didn't prioritize his presence in the beginning of the year. So more than anything else, the reason I think you guys should try this out, put it on for size, is because of the presence of God. There is something that happens when you sit in the presence of God. You literally change. You get closer to him. You hear his voice unfiltered by the news, by social media, by people. There's this intangible quality that I can't really speak to, of just being in the presence of God alone and allowing him to change you. And so, we talk a lot about scaling in your career, in your business, doing $1 million, scaling your net worth. And millionaires, I know y'all are busy. I know you've got lots of things going on. I know this is, for some of you, you think this is the last thing you have time for. And I'm here to say, listen, if you can't do this, what are you doing? Right? Take that time away. Seek God's face. I don't care whether you're Christian or you're not Christian. I've mentioned we've had clients who are not Christian who have done this as well and received a crazy amount of value from it. And then here's what I would like you to do. Let me know how you're impacted. If you do it for a day, if you do it for half a day, you do it for 3 days, you do it for 7 days, leave a comment on this video. Come back and let me know. Drop a review on the podcast. Share this episode with the people that you love so that they also can do the same. Trust me, I know without a shadow of a doubt that there is enough room, there is enough space in this world for all of us to live out the calling of God on our lives at another level. There is room for that. There is room for you. And so I want to invite you into the process that has helped me to step into my next level year after year after year. And here's what I will say as well. If you are finally ready to create at a level that you've never stepped into before, if you're finally ready to know what those limiting beliefs are that have been slowing you down and actually shift them out of the way, if you're ready to finally see what you are capable of in your business, in your life, in your career, then why don't you go ahead and book a call with myself, with my team, so that we are able to talk with you and figure out whether we are the ones to help you scale your business, scale your finances, scale your financial planning to a place that is in the millions of dollars, because hey, why not? While honoring God, while loving your family, and while treating yourself, your physical frame, your body, your staff team, the people around you with kindness. I love, love, love you guys. And I am wishing each one of you a very happy new year and an amazing 2023. Peace. Hey millionaires, thanks for tuning in to today's show. If you want to subscribe, there's a little picture of me right here. Click on that. And if you want to have a free financial breakthrough session with my team, then you can go on ahead and click on the button right here or visit moneymindset.ca/call. I'll see you guys on the next show. Bye-bye.